All right. Oh, okay. Pour some alcohol.
Sure.
Are you ready for this now?
I guess. Yeah. Not really sure, to be honest.
Oh, crap. I mean, 30 minutes ago, you were like, is this a good idea? That's more what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, still wondering.
Okay. So this is like, could be like, in a way, this feels like it's a little chintzy to say this, but in a way, this is our most vulnerable podcast ever.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, it's fresh off the whatever newspaper shelves.
Are you awake over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Your volume is very low. I'm not sure whether to turn you up or whether to...
no, I'll try to...
Or whether to wake you up or what.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. How's that for an intro?
You're listening to the Fight for Together podcast.
So, in today's episode of TMI, we are going to be bringing you behind the scenes into our biggest, longest, ongoing fight / conflict / disturbance
Of our relationship.
And
Like it's an ongoing occurrence. Did you say that?
I think so. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's so ongoing that we're in the middle of it right now. Like, we literally are starting recording this podcast half an hour late because we are having a quote-unquote 2 to 5 minute conversation is what Cammie packaged it as. After dinner.
Yeah.
That was about, almost an hour into it?
We talked for an hour, probably.
And I'm saying, why don't we just start recording the podcast and we can sort it out on the podcast, because then we get the podcast done and we can also figure our shit out. Oh, by the way, did you see that? Did you see that comment? As someone said that they stopped listening when I called women bitches.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Which I do like to do that, don't get me wrong. But when I say bitches, I'm not referring to females exclusively. Mm-hmm. I want to be clear on that. I'm talking about males and females.
Who are acting like a bitch, or who may be bitches.
Sure.
Might not even be derogatory for you.
Yeah,
right?
it's more of a slang term that I just enjoy. I mean, you know me. Like,
yeah.
And if people are going to leave our podcast for the language, like, I get it. But, geez, just so you know, my language in person is, you would find 10 times more offensive. I really do try and tone it down. But you can only do so much, for people.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes it's like, all right, you got to go.
Yeah. True.
But, yeah. Oh, I love offensive language.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that so we don't have to talk about this other stuff.
Yeah, no. That's a whole nother episode. Okay. So where can I begin? As far back as I can remember. So Cammie and I have been married for 22 years. And I only remember this happening in our married life, although who's to say that it didn't happen earlier. But this was basically the cycle, and sing along if you know it, Cammie. Or
sing along.
Butt in if you know, if you have anything to say, okay?
All right.
So, and I'm going to say it how we thought of it at the time. Mm-hmm. Okay. predominantly, I feel like happened around sex. In case you haven't noticed a theme in our life. But this was not limited to that. So I would initiate and say like, hey, Cammie, you want to have sex? AKA, I want to have sex tonight or something. And Cammie would say no. And then I would withdraw from her emotionally and physically. And this would go on.
Because you felt hurt or disappointed?
Well, that's the big damn mystery now, isn't it?
I mean, back then, is that what we thought?
I don't remember all of what we thought. I just remember beating myself up for it. Well, let's tell the story and then we'll get into like more of the nuances. But
okay.
So I would withdraw. You would freak the fuck out. Like you would come after me. Sometimes you would try and initiate sex, but you would like hit. You would like, this is when you like break
I
things.
only hit you once, right?
Maybe.
That I can remember.
Well, I'm not even saying just hitting me. You would hit things.
Oh, yeah.
You like slam doors, you slam tables, like, and I'm saying this because you don't do this any other time. Mm-hmm. You're not like a hitty person. In these moments, goddamn.
Yeah,
you
it
hit
would
shit.
Trigger something really extreme and painful within me. Yeah.
And you would like, I would go sleep in my office and you would say, come up to the bedroom, please. And as we kind of said in last week's podcast, man, I just remember this comment. I got to read this comment because I really like it. And it was on my mind.
Mm.
And it kind of has to do with the swearing thing. Okay, yeah, so this bitch named Sorello. Okay, I don't know if you're a bitch, a male or female bitch. Says, glad you're back with the TMI. Makes the most fascinating, thought-provoking conversations. What I love is like half the time you talk, I'm often not bought in and kind of triggered / indignant. But I love that I'm always surprised where you take it and the lessons you draw from it. I always have trouble disagreeing with you in the end. God damn, I love that comment.
Whoa.
Because, like, you know, that's kind of...
It says more about them than
Yeah.
us. Like, that they can stick with...
Yeah.
They can stick with it long enough feeling that way. Like, if you feel... What did they say? Like, indignant.
Yeah, triggered / indignant. Which triggered is actually a very, I think, often mature word to use. Because it...
yeah. It
insinuates that the drama is coming from something that's inside of them.
Yeah.
And is just being, in fact, triggered by our conversation. But the problem isn't our conversation. So,
yeah.
anyways, I love that. And I was thinking about that as I was saying that I withdraw because I feel like this is a very similar story. And this person might have a similar response to this type of podcast where the way we tell the story, you know, we're talking about 20 to 22 years of maturity here.
Yeah.
And when I hear the first part of the story and what we were trying to figure out at this time was really, it's triggering in me even. And it kind of makes me pissed off now for different reasons. But I think if you stick with the story, you'll see the evolution. I think everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people could learn something, not by how we model life, but just you might find yourself in pieces of us. And basically, you and I were just saying before this podcast started, we've never heard this talked about online, this same thing.
No.
Which is pretty weird because it's got to be out there.
Like our specific brand of,
Well, I don't know
or
how
just
specific
like,
it needs to be, but...
Oh, just like the cycles that couples or intimate partners go through. Because
in this type of dynamic, right?
I know, and that's something I've been really frustrated with.
We gotta get into it so people know what the heck we're talking about.
Okay.
So, Cammie would deny me sex or something like that, and then I would
It's a funny way to put it. Well,
yeah,
just like I would just say no, I don't want to have it.
Yeah.
But you could go have sex somewhere else, I guess. I wasn't denying you sex.
Absolutely not. I could go have sex somewhere else.
I mean, even with yourself. But back then, we didn't believe in all those
not.
things.
That was not an option back then.
Right. Because we were religious.
Yeah.
And
we believed masturbation was wrong, porn was wrong, certainly sex with other people was wrong. Mm-hmm. So no, it was...
I know. I mean, I know that, but they might not know that. So I just wanted to clarify.
Oh. Wait, so do you not agree with denying me sex is accurate?
With me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess with me I was, yeah. Denying you sex with me. Yes, that is accurate.
I mean, these are the feelings.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on. Where am I? Cammie would deny me sex, and then I would withdraw, and then she would come after me. And then this is when we had like awesome makeup sex that solved the problem for at least like an hour, sometimes even 2 or 3 hours.
Or I feel like the cycle would last like days, like at least maybe weeks.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of being facetious, but but really, like, it was very temporary solution is my point.
Yeah.
And then we would do this again. And sometimes this would last a week. Sometimes this would happen once a month. Sometimes it would happen maybe 3 or 4 months. There'd be a gap, but it always happened.
Right.
And
count on it like the rising of the sun.
When I get up, you talk.
Oh, well, I didn't have anything to say at the moment.
And in this time period, by the way, we are in the church, which for us meant that most people in marriages in the church, in our experience, they don't talk about their problems. We didn't. We sure as heck didn't. We never saw anyone else talking about their problems. Mm-hmm. So when you have problems like this, it felt like we were really like broken or
and alone.
And like no one else had this problem, and we were like really fucked up for having it. Mm-hmm. And I predominantly blamed myself because the way I use the language very intentionally that we thought, okay, Cammie is like not able to have sex or not interested or whatever. And it wasn't always just sex, like intercourse. Sometimes these are like just sexual advances or just like romantic moves. And then I'm basically being a big fat fucking bitch about it. A male bitch, if I identify as male. I'm being a baby about it. We wouldn't have used the word bitch back then. We would use the word. I felt like I was being a baby and being really petty, and I'm like punishing her somewhat involuntarily. This felt really out of my control, I guess I need to say too back then. Like I wasn't. The more years that went on, and the more number of ways I attacked this problem, which somewhere around then I got involved in 12-step groups and I started processing feelings and talking about things, which helped tremendously. I got a sponsor/mentor that I was able to talk about these things with, and we approached it from an addiction perspective. And I thought, okay, maybe it's that I'm addicted to sex. And I'm putting this on Cammie, and I just need to process my feelings instead. So I went through years and years of doing that. And then we got into therapy, and I've talked to multiple therapists about this who had different solutions. And none of it, I don't want to say it didn't help at all, but none of it solved it. We 20 years later, we still had this phenomenon occur.
Yeah.
And I call it a phenomenon because the further we got into our marriage and the more mature I got and like self-aware I got, and I had worked on all these fucking issues in my parenting and our marriage, and a lot of shit just went away. I mean, like, very dramatically shifted, like the way we parented, the anger I had towards kids, my feelings of shame around myself and my children, or the way our relationship really has evolved in crazy ways. Mm-hmm. But in this one area, it wasn't really that different.
Compared to other parts of our life, other parts of ourselves, it feels like this has evolved the slowest. It's just like, what the hell is going on? It's sometimes I want to ask the universe.
So, enter in 2023, and this is about 2 months ago. And I have this like insight, which may or may not have been psychedelically inspired. And okay, it was mushrooms. You talked me into telling you, unless this is the U.S. government, in which case all names and details are fictional.
Mushrooms? What mushrooms? Yeah. I cook with them. I put them in my
dinner. And all of a sudden, I'm in my office alone, and we're actually in the middle of one of these cycles. And I am like, I just have this insight, and it was very simple, but it was like, I'm depressed. And I need to tell you why this was, in fact, an insight. Because I have never considered myself... People are like, depressed. I'm like, depressed what? Like, stop being a fucking baby. Like, get shit done. I get shit done. I mean, I was raised in a Christian Asian family, so we didn't have fucking feelings. Like, that wasn't, something.
Let alone depression, which is beyond a feeling. It's like something else.
We believed in math and God's word and getting shit done. And I went to, like, I did not miss a day of school for being sick, ever. Like, I just went, because I was like, if you believe you're well, you just go. And into our marriage, I always felt like everything was my choice. I should be in my control. If I want to love my wife, I should love my wife. If I'm not loving my wife or making her feel pursued or desired or loved or whatever words we would have used back then, it's my fault and it's my choice. And I can change that. I can make the decision to love her better or tell her I appreciate her or all these things. But what started to happen, and we saw this cycle pan out in our community, our Christian community that imploded, I would say, 5, 6, 7 years ago now, I guess. And we were involved in these dynamics that it took a therapist and a lot of years of therapy to help us disentangle ourselves from, where basically we had money and influence and vision and
energy
and a lot of loneliness. So we built an entire community around us funding, supporting, pouring into people, creating events, and it all revolved around our energy. And we know this because with our therapist's suggestion, when we finally stopped providing the energy, when we said we're no longer going to host, but we would love it if anyone else hosted, the entire thing imploded and just flat out vaporized. It disappeared. And that's when we were like, oh, I guess that was all there because we were just not willing to stop.
Well, not just that. We created the whole thing based off of our own energy. We didn't match energy with anyone. Like, all the people that were attracted to us didn't have the energy. Like, they wanted to, like, suck from our tit.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess to pause there for a second, because that's a really important theme. we were hosting events and inviting people to, like, you know, at one point it's like 5 nights a week at our house we're hosting stuff. And people wouldn't host us the same way. And when that happened, I would always kind of make excuses for them. I'd be like, oh, well, I'm sure they would if they had more money. Or I'm sure they care about us. They just, like, you know, it's just easier to do it at our house. I had all these reasons why they weren't doing it.
Or they have small kids. And then I think back when we had small kids, I'm like, we were doing that shit back then even.
Yeah.
So
I think we were filling some void or something. But anyways, I read this. Our therapist gave us this magazine. I think it was like Psychology Today or something. And there was this article. And the mom talks about writing a letter to her daughter. And the daughter doesn't write back. And this is like, ask a therapist, or the therapist is interpreting these actions. And he said, no response is a response.
yeah.
So the mom was like, oh, she must have been busy. She forgot to write back. So I'll contact her again. And the therapist said, like, no, if someone doesn't respond to you, listen to that. Listen to the space. Listen to the void. And I never listened. If I invited people to 10 things and they didn't invite me to any, I was like, I would make up an excuse for them.
Yeah.
Or for myself, rather.
Well,
Instead of...
You interpreted it in the way that was the most useful for you at the time.
Yeah, but it was fictional. It was make-believe.
Right. But you needed them to have that excuse
Evidently.
that you made up in your mind.
Instead of asking the question, why aren't they inviting us to something? Maybe, and there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Which aren't bad, but they're just true and are very hard to accept. What if they don't care about the relationship as much as we do? What if they don't need us as much as we want them to? Or they don't value the relationship as much as we value the relationship?
Right.
And none of these are moral things. They're just like hard truths. So when we stopped inviting people, I was like, oh, okay, cool. All the invitations are going to come. And it's like crickets. And it's like, ooh, ouch. That was a hard truth. But I would say our healing from that system started then. When we started listening to that truth. And instead of continually inviting people to fill every gap of our life, we just dealt with that loneliness.
Right.
Which we had never faced because we're filling it with church community bullshit.
Right. And then shortly after that, we're getting like kicked out of all the like church community stuff anyway. So then it was like the decision was sort of made for us in a way, but then it just like catapulted us out of that Christian world. And then all of a sudden we had all this like resources that kind of helped me at least understand parts of why I even get in that cycle to begin with, or like attachment stuff I had never heard about in the church. Like, you know, attachment what? You should be attached to God. That's it.
Okay. So the reason why I went down that whole rabbit trail of talking about listening to the silence and allowing space was in our own relationship, I started to come to grips with the fact you were reading these books on attachment style, and you'd come to me and be like, oh, we have different attachment styles. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it seemed really important to you. But in the midst of all this language and healing and learning, it's obvious for the last 3 years that in our romantic, I would call it romantic, not sexual, although I would include some of the sexuality into the romance of our relationship, I have provided what feels like to me 80% of the energy to get where we are today.
Did that start in your childhood? Do you remember, like, even if like a teenager, like bringing all the energy to like your relationships, friendships?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I remember was that like, in high school, I probably wrote like, geez, I feel like it was like 400 or 500 letters or something like that. I always wrote back. I was never the last person to get a letter. Mm-hmm. With probably like 40 different people I had 40 different pen pals, most of them girls, because they were the only ones that would write back. Not all the girls wrote back.
Was I the one that wrote back the least?
I feel like Lucy Spiro actually wrote back less than you.
Oh, okay. Phew.
But you were
up there in the
for who I cared about, you definitely wrote back the least.
And then you went after me.
It was always kind of like the girls that were like would write back, that are the ones that like I didn't want to write back necessarily.
Like the ones that were bringing. You're like, okay, my energy and your energy, that's too much energy. I need to go after the person.
Well, no, it was never too much.
Well,
for me,
I guess I'm making a point. I wonder if you were more attracted to someone who gave less energy, because often we're attracted to opposites.
Yeah, that could be true, I guess. But shit, I was not thinking that way then.
Well, yeah, of course not. Me neither.
But I would always write back. And like my friends, I was always available for my friends much more than they were for me.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to make it sound like I was a good person. I think I was really lonely.
Well, you're really lonely, and you maybe had a really high need for connection. I say high because maybe it was higher than like the average person. Or something like, what did the therapist say? Exaggerated need for intimacy.
An exaggerated desire for intimacy or something like that.
Yeah, or I thought it was need, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe need. Okay, so where the hell was I? Yes, in our relationship, I'm providing 80% of the romantic moves. And this is from, you could go back to the good old days when I was writing you letters, you weren't writing me back.
Yeah.
I was interested in you, you weren't interested in me. Then we get married, so even before marriage, we're talking about our secrets, and you have these like deep, dark secrets of like your youth pastor bullshit. And I'm like, pulling this shit out of you. Like you're like a clam. You won't like open up, and I'm like digging for these secrets, like using all this energy to try and like get to know you and coming after you, like, and you're not doing that to me, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Then we get married, so like 9 out of 10, well actually not 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100 sexual initiation things are me. Mm-hmm. And, we could talk about trauma, and there's all these different reasons for that, but let's just not for now. And, like, now you did, the one thing I remember you initiating was date night. Like, in Kirkland. Just the concept of it, of getting childcare.
Yeah, okay.
Besides that, though, like, any trips, like, if we go to Hawaii, if there's, like, a birthday, if there's a surprise, if there's an anniversary, like, I planned all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was just like, kind of like what we shared last week. We had these different roles, and it was just kind of like, it's kind of like, okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, I was happy. I wasn't complaining. It was just like, that's just like what I did. And you, like, you were providing a lot of care for the kids at this time, and, doing other shit. You're busy. You're going to school. You're cleaning the house. It seemed fair. Like, I was happy. It felt like. I thought I was.
Yeah.
But, come to find out in therapy, sometimes shit works great for a time period, but then the longer you go, you start to see the cracks in it if it's not built on a solid foundation.
Or if you're evolving as a person, then often the things that used to work start not working anymore. That maybe were built in your childhood, or patterns. Yeah.
And so I think what I started to conclude was that I wasn't withdrawing on purpose. I wasn't trying to teach you a lesson. I was actually, and there's two ways to put it, out of energy, romantic energy, initiative energy, or I was depressed, in that way at least. And by depressed, what I mean is, I don't want to use that word in a diagnostic sense, like in a medical sense, because I don't give a fuck about that. But not to discount the people that deal with that. I'm not in that world, and I'm not going to pursue a diagnosis. But when someone says they're depressed, I have sympathy for them because I assume you have a hard time getting out of the bed out of the morning or getting shit done or whatever it is. But it's not optional. Like you have this, I've heard people describe it like you have this wet blanket over you or this huge weight, or it's so hard to get motivation or to get up. It's just, you can try and try and try. You can, listen to all the podcasts you want.
Like everything's in black and white. Like all the things that you would normally enjoy, you don't.
Yes, it's uphill. It's not optional is the point.
Yeah.
And all I know is like I get in these places where I fucking show up for our relationship. I feel like 110%. I'll plan the dates. I'll buy the gifts. I have all this energy, and I've done this pretty much nonstop for 22 years. Until I can't. And I hit this like wall, and this is actually very similar to a lot of my personality with other areas of life also. Where I vlog, and I vlogged every day, 5 days a week for 5 years. And then I stopped. I lose motivation. And it's not to say I don't think I lack, what's the word? Like, I can stick with projects or whatever. But when I stop believing in something, or when
Well, you almost stick to projects to a fault. Like, before, like maybe you shouldn't, like maybe it should.
Sure.
Like,
but when I quit, I quit. Like,
oh yeah,
a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you do blackjack? And I'm like,
oh,
I did blackjack for 10 years, and when I was done, I was like done.
No,
like,
that's true.
I didn't
You
care.
like, you move on quick.
Same thing with the business world. Once I figured out, oh, you can make money, you can make $1 million a year, I was like, cool, I'm done. Like I didn't want it, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I was like, peace out. And I haven't looked back, Anyhow, in our relationship, I feel like consistently day in, day out, I was like initiating. I was providing the energy. I was like, hey, Cammie, what do you want to do for date night? Hey, Cammie, like, you want to read these books? Hey, Cammie, let's go to therapy. Hey, Cammie. And it's not to say you weren't bringing your effort, or you didn't care. It wasn't like that at all, but you couldn't keep up with me.
I can't even keep up with some, especially back then, like someone who was given 50%, let alone 110.
So anyways, then something would happen. Oftentimes it came in the form of me initiating sex or getting denied or getting turned down in some way that I didn't feel valued or something like that. And the new interpretation for me was, instead of me just withdrawing and trying to punish you or be petty about that circumstance, I started to see that circumstance triggered some awareness in me that, like, hey, dude, you're investing too much in this relationship. You're over-investing. You're overextending yourself.
Yeah.
And just like we learned in community, not that it's like bad or something, but it's unsustainable if one partner or one friend is putting in 80% of the energy and one partner is putting in 20. Like, it's not the type of friendship I wanted to have with you. It's not the type of romance I want to have with you. It's not the type of marriage. And I used to have a very high tolerance for those types of friendships. Now I don't. If someone's like not really willing to invest that much, I'm like, no.
Except for with me.
Yeah, evidently. I let some riffraff filter through. But So I'm a lot more, but that's health for me.
Yeah.
Is to not be involved in relationships where I was basically functioning as the parent and they were functioning as the child.
I was just gonna say the only relationship that would be appropriate in, I guess, is a parent-child one, where the child's like still actually a child. Or I was thinking like, what, a teacher-student? Do teachers put more effort than students?
No, I hope not. I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
I think the best teaching happens when teachers lay out expectations and kids put in a different kind of effort.
Yeah.
Like they're going to show up to class, right? They're going to do their homework, or they're going to be curious as to what the teacher is saying. They don't put the same kind of effort in.
Yeah.
But if a teacher cares a ton and a student doesn't care at all,
Yeah.
I think it's really not helpful for the teacher to continue to try and force a child to learn.
Yeah.
Or care about a relationship.
Right.
That's my personal stance.
Right.
Either way, so then I started to see like, okay, there's kind of just a new script for this 22-year-old narrative that I've always invested too much, but instead of feeling like a hero for doing that, I started to ask this question, which is like, just like with the community, why am I always investing so much romantically?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I haven't got a lot down that road. I think that I'm scared of the space. And I think it's easier for me just to fill it with something. And instead of waiting for you to do it, which sounds risky, just I can do it. Like, hey, let's go on a date and let's be together.
Yeah.
Never mind that it's always me initiating that.
Mm-hmm.
And we've experienced, I think this is where maybe there's some overlap from last week's vlog episode about just talking about when I've stepped back and become more aware of why I'm feeling in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And more, I can't emphasize enough, I had a lot of shame around this dynamic because I thought I could fix this. I should be able to fix this. I don't want to punish you. I don't want to be a baby. I don't want to be a petty asshole or like just retributive, or just trying to teach you a lesson or, because here's the thing we haven't really got into. When I would withdraw, you would feel so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to get into that? Why not?
Yeah, I guess. It's a little fresh today, but well, I'm still trying to unpack that after 22 years. Really, only the last 3 years, I feel like I'm starting to like get insights into myself and why I have such a strong reaction to you losing energy. But really, it's just a shift in behavior. I sense a shift in behavior in you, and then my nervous system like goes into fight or flight, and I don't fully know, to be honest. Like, I don't really know. I just think that I must have had enough experiences as a child where this feels familiar to me, and so my body's just like, oh yeah, this is unsafe, you should like run or fight or something. But it's really only been in the last few years that I've been able to recognize that, and I have the resources to even know how to calm myself down. And try to get to whatever stable nervous system state is.
Can I say this? Like, one of the things that's been really helpful for us is to understand. Who is that?
It's Eden.
Oh. Is to understand that, okay, using my side of the example, when I'm like chugging along, giving 110%, and then I get triggered by, you know, you would like say no to sex or something like that. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, go for it.
what's up? You want to hear the podcast live, Eden? Can't get enough of it.
No, she's like, I just live here.
I used to take it out on you. I'd be like, oh, if Cammie just said yes to sex more, or whatever my initiating, if she initiated more, in fact, that's what we thought the problem was for a long time, then all of this would go away for me.
Oh, right.
And you thought on your side, if Ben didn't withdraw, I wouldn't have this thing. I wouldn't have to freak out. You're just freaking out because I'm being an asshole.
Right.
Come to find out, my shit was there. I was this type of person with or without you, with or without the sex, with or without the initiation. That was just the thing that was bringing it to the surface.
Yeah.
Was I didn't allow space in relationships. And my work in the last year or two has been to allow that type of space, which has been scary for me.
Yeah.
For other people, it's scary to plan a date. For me, it's scary to not plan a date.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
true.
on the flip side,
yeah,
you have whatever fucking issue. We don't know what to call it or whatever. I mean, we have all these words of...
It's attachment... I don't know. It's probably like attachment, insecurity, like insecure attachment.
But I get so frustrated because you keep on blaming me and you keep on saying like, why are you withdrawn? And I'm like, dude, I can't. I think I called you a bitch last week.
Probably. I'm just so used to it.
But you don't identify as female, do you? So it's not technically like...
Oh, whatever. Yeah, sure.
So... But like, because I just wanted to call you a bitch again, but I didn't because I was like, oh, someone's going to stop listening. But what the fuck was I saying? Oh, you blame me, and you're like, why are you withdrawing? And I'm like, bitch, I can't.
Couldn't help yourself.
I can't. I don't have any energy to keep on going right now. I need a break. I'm depressed, and I'm not just trying to get sympathy, because for me, admitting depression in this area or lack of motivation or lack of ability, or I'm just too tired and exhausted to carry on this way anymore, sounds like defeat. It's not taking the easy way out for me. I'm not trying to create a victim out of myself. Like that, being a victim is far more scary. Hey, can you go back over to the house and we'll come over when we're done?
We'll come over when we're done, okay?
You didn't even tell me that you
I'm
were
sorry.
over here.
Sorry, can you go? You can go play something with Filia, okay?
What do you mean? Play something with Filia? Go somewhere?
Sure, that's fine.
Or can I have extra time?
No,
Can
not.
I watch something on the computer?
No, you
like
can,
a movie?
No, you can play with Filia. That's it. Okay. That's okay.
You would treat it as if I was making a choice, or because of the pain you're going through, I think you would look around and be like, I need to find someone to blame for this pain. And of course I'm the obvious answer, because one day I'm like swooning all over you and the next day I'm not. Mm-hmm. But to put it in a little bit of like, to paint a picture of what goes on here, because this is what's happening. We're in the middle of this right now. So every day I'm like making all these fucking moves on you. Like, and we're pretty sappy, I would say. And by we, I would mean me.
Hey, I've stepped it up a little.
You have, but we flirt
not like Ben
a
level,
lot.
but...
We're like naked a lot. We're like, we live in the same house and we work in the same house.
There's a lot of touch points throughout the day and evening where we're affectionate, We talk a lot. Like, there's just a lot of connection points.
And we cuddle, we're naked, we're, just flirting. There's a lot of that. It's very normal for us. Mm-hmm. And when I hit this point, I don't feel like doing hardly any of that. And if Cami initiates it, I'll, do it, but I'm not, excited by it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. Using the word that you use, just the world turns kind of black and white for me. And I just feel I feel like I need, CPR or something. But I'm still, I guess the picture I'm trying to paint is all that romance, sexual stuff kind of evaporates, and we become kind of like roommates. We sleep in the same bed, but normally where I'd, hold her all night long, literally, we're not even, touching.
Well, we used to not touch, but now I feel like I touched you last night.
You did?
Well, just I cuddled my body up next to your body, but I didn't hold you. But maybe I only point that out because I used to be like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, we'd wear clothes to bed.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say too is, as I'm trying to learn about myself, is I've read that for someone who has gone through trauma, or their nervous system is not at a stable state, it could just be a certain moment or whatever, but neutral cues are seen as threatening. So if it's not, so I wonder for me, if you're giving me neutral cues, for someone else would just be like, he's just whatever. But for me, I'm like, why are you being so mean?
Yeah, because I'm not doing mean shit. In fact,
no.
I actually used to early on, because I remember pushing you, or I don't think I ever pinched you, but I do weird stuff like that. Because this is before 12-step groups. I didn't have language to say I was hurt or disappointed or sad. So I would just do physical things.
I feel like you did this kind of recently, but you don't do this very much anymore. But you would do this thing where you would hug me and then just squeeze me a little too tight. I'm like, whoa there, bitch.
Well, I'm letting you know. Hey, don't call me a bitch. I'm letting you know this is not a romantic hug. Because I don't.
Oh, right.
I think.
No, it's like you have this energy that maybe could get out in a different way if you talked about your feelings. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. But it's sort of when people have to punch the pillow, you're probably just ugh.
I don't know.
Or maybe you're just trying
Here's
to
what's weird too. So I'm ready to move towards the solution that we've found.
Yeah, let's do it.
Which I don't even think we agree with, evidently. I don't know if we agree.
I don't.
We didn't agree 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
But
it's hard.
Basically, what I've concluded, I've stopped beating myself up and just saying hey, Ben, it's okay. Sometimes you need space. You can't provide this romantic energy, and that's okay. And for the most part, I feel like you agree with me, except for when you're in fight or flight. Mm-hmm. Which can last up to 3 to 7 days sometimes, which is a bitch.
Or I can still...
I didn't call you a bitch. I said that's a bitch.
Or I'm just still feeling the sting of how much pain I was in. So then I'm just I don't know if this is the right... I think for me, it's hard because maybe I'm afraid that this solution just won't work for me.
Yeah, who the hell knows? It's untested in a way. But where was I? I lost
solution.
Okay. So for me, I've accepted, hey, I'm not going to be able to show up to this relationship and initiate romance for certain time periods. And Cami used to interpret that as I don't want romance. So she would take a break too. When in reality, it's kind of weird, but what I'm looking for, I felt overextended in the relationship.
Yeah.
And there's two ways to deal with that. One is I pull back. But the other is, I think, for you to step up. And I feel like just intuitively or on the subconscious level, I felt like I needed to see more skin in the game from you. Like a lot of these things, because I'm compulsively driven to do these romantic gestures, doesn't mean that they don't entail risk. And especially when I got denied, that's when I would feel like, oh shit, like this is really risky. All these things I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's when I'd kind of like do a little self-auditing thing and be like, man, you're really overinvested here. And I would kind of like want you to invest, which isn't fair to put on you. I mean, I think it is fair to have a desire and to want that, but I don't expect that of you, and I don't think you have to. But also, our relationship might not be functioning at that same romantic level. What's weird, just like going back to the community conversation, we had this community. It was fucking rocking. I mean, it was like 10 out of 10 fun. You know, we're like living life. We're 5 nights a week where there's parties in our house. We're hanging out with all these people. Yeah, it's fucking great. And then we got fucking healthy in therapy, and we're like, okay, we're not going to be funding this whole operation emotionally and financially.
Yeah.
And it vanished.
Yeah.
And it's easy to think like, oh, we fucked up. In fact, that's what we got accused of, and that's how we felt for a while.
Yeah.
But in the long run, we could see like, oh, that thing was going to implode anyways, and we're much healthier now.
Yeah.
And the relationships that we have, I would consider, we're just in a better spot. And I don't...
We're even attracting people that can bring more energy to the table like we can.
So while I'm thankful for those good old days and I appreciate them, I do not miss them. I do not want them back.
Yeah.
Now, in our relationship, we've had this fucking banging romance where we're like, you know, on fire. But health for us might be ratcheting it down. If I'm the one providing the energy. So this is where there's this big question. And I asked you before the cruise, I was like, I don't know what you're willing to risk. Like, it's hard for me to admit that sometimes, and it's scary. But, like, even the last 3 days, like, so...
Well, I don't even know.
Yeah. And if I'm not willing to do it anymore, and if you're not, all I know is our relationship will probably look different. Now, what I believe, if our past has any bearing on this, is that it'll be better, like it'll be evolution.
Yeah.
You know, it's always like forward in a way. But I really enjoy the romance, and I hope that you like take more risks and initiate more, which, you know, like we talked about last week, a lot what that process has looked like in terms of Cammie coming in touch with her own desires for the first time, where she really wasn't in touch or aware that you even had desires for multiple decades, even before I knew you.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, like, you can start to put some pieces together as to we were set up for this.
Yeah, totally. In so many ways.
So I don't know. I was thinking maybe you could walk through these cards and what they mean to you.
Okay.
Not because it's like the solution, but
yeah,
it's where we arrived at the latest solution. And
yeah, and I will say, like, when things aren't so like fresh for me, pain wise, trigger wise, these cards make a lot more sense to me. So I do feel like a lot of it has to do with like where I'm at emotionally, which matters because these are the cards I pull out when I'm in that emotion. But I'm just wondering if, yeah. Anyways,
you don't. So.
Well, and I wonder why. Like, I wonder
yeah.
if it actually feels unsafe for me to even pull these cards out because I don't know. Anyways.
So the origin of these is that, after 20 years of dealing with this, I go through these, we'll call them depressive states, withdrawal states, and Cammie says, "Oh, you don't want me to initiate, so I'm not going to initiate." I'm like, no, that's not true. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that I don't have the ability to respond in these times. And in these times, you don't have to, but I would love it if you would come after me or step it up and, you maintain the romance for a change in our relationship. And it's not to say, I'm not shitting on you. You maintain so many other parts of our friendship and family.
Yeah.
We're really talking about one very specific aspect of our relationship, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But I said, so I had this fit of inspiration, and I just wrote it down. I was like, I'm going to give this to you because I can't really communicate when I'm in this depressed state very well. You're like, how are you? And I'm like, fine. That's because I am really in a way. I'm not angry, but I said, if you want to know how to help me, this is how you can help me.
Yeah. Okay. When I feel a shift from Ben and this triggers a full body response, remember, he gets tired and worn out sometimes and is not able to come after you. This does not mean he doesn't like you or want to be close to you.
Wait, are you going to explain these at all?
Oh.
Each of these cards represents...
Oh, okay.
Maybe we've talked about already, but...
Yeah, he gets tired and worn out. Well, it's just he's not able to come after you. So this is supposed to, help me remember why he's behaving the way he's behaving, because otherwise I fill in the gaps with I did something wrong, he doesn't like me, he's protecting himself, he's guarded, I don't know, yada
or
yada.
I'm trying to teach you a lesson.
Yeah. This does not mean he doesn't like you or want to be close to you. So this is supposed to combat what I would naturally just feel in these states. Oh, he doesn't like me. Look how he's behaving. He doesn't want to be close to me.
Well, because you get in these states where you're this is over.
Well, I didn't this time.
No, gold star.
But yeah, historically, I am ready to throw in the towel. I'm just why are we together? This was especially really painful for me when I would be pregnant. This is just a little side note. Dude, that was fucking rough. Because I remember just being I want to leave, and I am stuck with a baby inside of me. That's his and mine. And yeah, that was rough. Anyways, that's not going to happen anymore. Speaking of babies, he has been married to you for 22 years, made 6 babies with you, and you are his favorite lover and best friend. So this is supposed to help me reframe how you actually feel towards me. It's not indifferent, even though the signals I pick up from you, whether it's true, I guess it's not true. It's not true. But what I'm picking up is oh, he doesn't he doesn't care.
We have this if you were to graph out 365 days a year. Let's just say there's 330 of them where I'm on fire after you, madly in love, getting along, pursuing you, planning shit. And then there's the 35 where I'm not.
Or I would probably even less than that.
Okay, cool. But whatever. And that 35 or 20 or whatever it is, you forget about those other the meaning and value of those other 330 go out the window for you.
Yes. Do you know what I thought this time, though? I was this will be over. This will not last forever.
That's cool.
Even though I felt like I did, there was some little bell in my head.
But for me, I'm no, bitch, I've been we've done the craziest shit together, and I've done all this stuff, and
well, I thought about that
after
too.
One day, I can't do it, and you're
I was
you think it's
fucking
last
over?
Weekend,
and I was wait, how could this just like be over? That doesn't make sense.
Wow, that's fucking insightful. I like it.
Yeah. You have a lot of power and can choose if you want to invest into the romantic relationship. This is pretty key because
really important.
Because historically, and I would say even to this day, especially when I get in those modes, I don't think I have a lot of power. I have been a very disempowered person historically. And so just to remember, like, the ball's in your court. Do you want to throw it or not? And it's actually a choice, even though it doesn't feel like a choice a lot of times. I believe it is, and I think I can probably set myself up in certain ways for that choice to be more evident. But this is a tough one for me too, because I immediately just like go to sex, and I'm like, I don't want to have sex right now, and it's really hard for me to think.
Can I pause and go back for 1 second?
About other ways I could connect with you.
Because before we get into practical what to do, I can't emphasize enough. You would literally say, when are you going to snap out of this and come after me again?
Yeah. As if all the power is in your hands.
As if this problem's not going to get solved until I come after you.
Right.
And it took me a long time to realize I don't want that. I don't want to be the only one that comes after you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, when are you coming after me?
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, let's get used to this space, because I don't want to do it anymore. But that was so, we've used the phrase parent-child. The parent-child dynamic can occur in peers or spouses in certain aspects. I think we had a parent-child dynamic in this romance where you're like, I can't do it. He's the only one capable. And I'm like...
Well, and I just want to pause for a moment and tell myself that I am making progress, because these last couple days that we've been in this like cycle thing look different than the last time. Like I didn't completely isolate myself. I like kept checking in with myself and was like, what can I do? And then I would do these things, which granted you were like, okay, that's cute, but whatever. But still, like, from my vantage point, I guess if you're just talking about me, not you, I've really come a long way to even be able to like do that.
I completely agree with you. And I say it's cute not because it's not significant, but because it doesn't have the impact on me of what I'm asking for.
But maybe it's the step in that direction, though.
Totally.
So then after that, to invest in the romantic relationship, there's practical tips. Pulling Ben aside and saying, I have felt a shift with you and your energy. For some reason, I want to like do a robot. I have felt a shift with you and your energy. I want you to know that I love you and want to connect with you. Okay. So I could say that. Whatever feels super risky
Which
to
you don't.
me.
I mean, I guess this is what
I did a version of this. Now,
what?
Today, I was like, hey, I think I can sense things have... I did do something.
Let me see.
I did do something along at least the first line. The first line that says,
okay,
I have
can I
felt
tell you where it's not that?
Okay, sure.
This explicitly says, I want you to know that I love you and I want to connect with you.
I know, I didn't do that part. I did the first line. I did the first line.
Yes. But it's a whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
And that's important because you have this way of putting it back on me, and you're like, once again, I'm trying to see, are you willing to take a risk here? And you're sometimes when you just ask people questions about them, you're still making them take the risk.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Whatever feels super risky to me at the time, i.e. giving him a hug, this probably doesn't feel risky to him. So try to go 1 to 2 steps further. Which that's tough for me in those moments to even, maybe it's because of where I'm at with my nervous system, but it's hard to be creative during those times. It's like, feels like a lot for me to even come up with, oh, okay, I can hug him right now. So,
well,
yeah.
we talked about potential reasons for this right before coming on this podcast, which, like I said, in my experience with you, you are so responsive to external stimuli. If
Right.
you hug me and if I don't like appear enthusiastic, you're like, I'm done. This is over. You're like, I'm not like.
Well, I'm like
I'm with
really
a hater.
sensitive to like energy, I think, and granted, maybe I'm reading your energy totally wrong. Especially, I wouldn't be surprised. But like, yeah. You're a hater. I'm not giving you any more of my hugs.
Well, there's something that's accurate, which is my energy in that way is very depleted or down or negative or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But it's like, okay, so are you only going to love me romantically when I'm fucking fantastic? Like,
yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I feel like, and this is what I feel like I've done with you and what I want to do with you, and I'm just asking for the return. It's like, dude, when you're down and when you can't tell, like, I remember, like, and I told this story recently, I mean, even in this podcast, but, you know, when you were in your teens and you were dealing with this sexual abuse stuff, I'd ask you, like, how's it going? You're like, fine. But I knew it wasn't fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? Fine. And you're like, everything's fine. I'm like, are you sure? Like, is something going? And I would like dig and I would ask you.
Well, but with that, it was very clear that that wasn't about you. And I think for me, because these things get triggered around like me telling you, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to have sex or whatever.
Yeah.
I like think that you're doing it because didn't give you the thing or something.
But it is doing us an incredible disservice, I think, when you make it about you.
Right. So if I can somehow make that shift. Another thought I had was like, I wonder if I actually if I get into like a shame cycle where as soon as I feel a shift, I think I did something wrong to deserve this. And then that shame cycle, I mean, shame does fucking crazy shit to people. Like, it immobilizes people. It makes them do things that they, wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I just wonder if that's like also
this is something I was trying to. I forget if I brought home the point from earlier, but when I was just pointing out that my stuff existed before you and your stuff existed before me, and we just trigger the fuck out of each other in this certain way.
Yeah.
But a lot of the marital disagreements out there, I have a feeling, have nothing to do with the other person. Like, but you're reminding someone of a situation or an insecurity or a fear or whatever that has nothing to do with you. It existed way before you, and it might get triggered by you. But if you're not the problem, you're also not the solution. And, I don't know. I think when we have our egos involved, it becomes so damn complicated. And if we can just see we're all hurting people, we actually want the same thing, where it's not me against you. I'm not trying to hurt you, and you're not trying to hurt me.
Uh-huh.
That's been so helpful for us.
Yeah. Talk about having sex earlier than 2 a.m. That was the last thing, because Ben has told me a lot of times that he does way better if I can, which totally makes sense to me, actually. I think I'm the same way. Basically, it's like foreplay. Like, if you don't do anything and foreplay, I think, can be a lot of things that aren't just sex, by the way, sexual things. But, like, if you, like, don't say anything and then all of a sudden at 1:30 a.m. you're like, let's have sex, and the whole damn day it was like crickets.
I know.
It's
I'm
like,
get the
you're
fuck
like,
outta
you're
here.
like,
I'm
what?
going to sleep. Bitch.
Which I can appreciate you wanting to go to sleep, but
I actually don't want to go to sleep. I just get pissed that you like. I feel like you
waited
put it
that
off,
long. Yeah.
and I'm like, is this not work? Anyways.
Don't get them started. All right. Connection prompts. These are, might use one or two of these tonight. Okay.
I even wrote these things out for you. Cammy, this is, I need to vent about this, okay? Because Cammy comes to me today and she's like, this is so confusing. I do not know what's going on. And that's every damn time. That's what she says. And I'm like, okay, those cards I wrote out for you? And
well,
I told you
I
to
wrote
get,
them,
I told you
but
to,
you wrote them, yeah.
I wrote it on an email or something.
Then
And I said, get
cards.
this tattooed on your forearm. Because it actually was a lot of work for me to write this out. Like on the vulnerability side of things.
Oh.
And we've been in this cycle 3 times. And I always ask you, and you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't look at the cards.
3 times since we got the cards, yeah.
And then you look at the cards and you're like,
oh, yeah.
Oh.
I'm like, when I feel a shift from Ben, and this triggers.
And by the way, this is just if you want to do this. You don't have to do any of it. I'm not telling you you're a bad person. I'm just saying, like, these are things that would help me. And help me or not. We can take a break, too.
All right. Connection prompts. I want to go on a date with you to blank. I want to go to Starbucks with you. Let's go to blank. I want to fuck you tonight. Ask a lot of questions. Be curious. Dig. Keep digging. Don't stop. Don't give up.
Because you'd be like, how's it going? I'll be like, fine. You're like, okay, cool.
Okay. Not okay, cool. Just like, that's enough. That's enough for me.
You're like, check. I put effort in today.
Yeah. Say, I miss you. I want you. I don't know what's going on, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be close. Oh.
That would be nice.
Hold your hand right now.
Dude, I should.
This is not very exciting. You're not very excited, so never mind.
I should sell these index cards for like $500. I don't know if anyone would buy them, but fuck, I would have bought them.
You're like, I would have paid $1 million.
Not that they're doing anything now, evidently either, but
right.
Maybe that's not true. Maybe they're helping.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our in-process TMI couples therapy bullshit that we're in the middle of, that we've been in the middle of, that's been a massive source of pain and struggle and confusion. But also, I don't really believe that you get to choose if you have pain or especially if you want growth, you don't get to choose pain. Like if you have it, but you get to choose where you have it. And I feel like we've made progress in this area, and it's been like a worthwhile type of pain. Mm-hmm. But it's painful. Mm-hmm. Like we have these nights where, man, it's icy in that bed, and
not just because it's 25 degrees outside.
And it hurts. It's hard. We have this way of relating, but I think I just have this firm belief that whatever lies on the other side of progress and growth is better, that it's worth it to like go through the change and kind of like abort the old way of doing things. Because sometimes it's just like, well, fuck it. Why not like just if it works, like go with it. But I see these couples that have like been doing the same thing for 40 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think that kills a relationship too.
It's doing us a disservice to just like decide, it's not, just keep, if it's not broken. But I have felt like it's broken, or I have felt like it's not working the same way it used to. So why keep at it? Like
at a certain point it works, and then the thing that was working can actually start hurting you. Like, like when you grow, like this something, like if you put a metal band around a tree, it couldn't like be propping it up one day and the next day it's choking it, and it's the same thing. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's yeah, it's been a wild ride. I don't know what else to say after all that.
Life's a bitch.
Yeah, this has been really complicated. I had a lot of shame around this for a lot of years. And I guess, that's the one thing maybe I'll say is like, this was so much of our life. This has consumed so much of our energy. And our kids would suffer, and other people would suffer. Because when I didn't have motivation, sometimes I didn't want to get out of bed, and I couldn't get work done. And
wow. Shit. And I remember having little kids, and like, we'd be in these cycles, and I could barely just like feed them and just to keep them alive.
And
it was really hard.
Yeah, so like, I don't know. I would want to tell people out there, like, you're not alone. And I even looking back at the younger versions of ourselves, I feel like we were just doing the best we could with what we had.
Yeah,
and
or what was given to us, too.
Yeah, and I feel like we have more resources now, so we're able to do better. And
yeah,
if you're listening to this podcast, I hope you maybe feel a little less alone, or maybe you identified with a part of me or a part of Cammie, and can find some hope in all this. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Fight for Together. We'll see you next time.